So, quick heads up, if you just want to see the part where I talk about what is probably going to be the main thumbnail focus and title of this video, you can just look at the timestamp and it'll show me going over to Twitter to sort of talk about the big thing. But for the people who want the updates on the account, because, you know, I say it all the time, as someone who is free to play, you might be seeing Shiny or Giku or these other content creators who are, you know, spending on the game, and you want more of a free to play lens on what you should expect from Bleach Soul Resonance. And because of that, you know, if you want to see how my account's doing, what I'm up to, well, you can see right here that I'm at 261 of the permanent character gacha standard banner. Within 80 gacha, you are going to get an SSR, and you can see that the big man's come home to spoil it. So I pulled yesterday. I was about, I think it was like the 70th pull, so not particularly lucky. And we've come up with our next big character who, after I did this, I was like tired. I was gassed. I was excited. I was like, I'm going to bed. But we do have Tousen here, and I wanted to talk about Tousen because he sort of changes my plans for the future, right? He sort of changed my plans for the future. So let's talk about something in Gacha that's really important for free-to-plays and especially like low-spending players as well. Though in Bleach Soul Resonance, if you're a low spender, you can pull every character, it seems like. So maybe this is specifically for the free-to-plays. I'm talking to y'all out there. If you're free-to-play like I am, you want to build around what the game's sort of giving you, right? So what do I mean in that? Well, let's look at what I have. I have Yoruichi, and she is doing just fine as Strike. I have Sajin Komomura. He's doing just fine as Strike. What I could use is maybe a more direct support for the Strike team. I've got Kisuke Urahara. He is an incredible support. He goes on every team. I'm currently using him with Komomura and Yoruichi. I've got Ichiko Shikai, who is the SR. Pretty sure he's just free to play, right? And what I would like to do at some point is I look at him and I'm like, well, what is the fill-in for Ichigo? Well, the fill-in for Ichigo currently is very obvious if you're a free-to-play player. It's Bankai Ichigo. So if you're someone who wants to re-roll or get into the game, you see that Bleach Soul Resonance, maybe you weren't really, you know, you weren't really optimistic when it came to Bleach Soul Resonance because, let's be honest, the pre-launch was a little sketchy. Delayed global release, you know, no advertisement, but the game is booming, right? They hit their market. And so long as this game is making money in, you know, China and SEA, it'll just continue to make money, you know, here. You know, this game, as mentioned by Giku, which we'll get to later, this game is not even released in Japan, apparently, which is a huge market for these games, right? So, and Bleach is very popular and currently running an anime, right? So this is something that is a big market that's being missed, right? So back to what I was saying though, is when I'm sort of looking at a character like Shikai Ichigo as a stand-in for Bankai Ichigo, you know, for the people who want to get in, I'm not looking him as like, oh, I want Ichigo Kurosaki the whole time to be Shikai for my account. I'm just looking at him as like, okay, Yoruichi is my strike DPS. Komomura is my strike tactic right now. I could bring up, if I didn't have them, I guess I could bring up Chad. If I didn't have them, I guess I could bring up Nemu. But because I know that I've got the DPS who will lead my team, the rest can sort of fall into place. I can just use Komomura. I can just use Urahara, right? To blindly support. I don't have that big DPS for Slash. But I know that Kenpachi is going to be a Slash DPS, right? Or, you know, we assume, but I'd imagine he's going to be a Slash DPS, which means as someone who needs to sort of budget my pulls and such, why am I looking at Ichigo Kurosaki Bankai release as my red DPS? Why would I look at him as my red DPS as a free-to-play player? Because I already know what I want. Whenever Aizen's banner is done rolling in January, I know who I want. It's Kenpachi, right? So I'm not looking for a fill-in for now. I'm just like, well, Shikai Ichigo is going to have to do his job, right? Let's zoom out then to Tousen. I see Tousen right here. Now I have a choice to make. Gin is coming up, Toshiro's coming up, and Aizen is coming up. Tousen does a ton of damage. He could probably, and if you're wondering like, well, how do you know this? You know, you didn't have Tousen before this. Tousen was a character that I primarily played in the Bleach beta. So for a week, I was playing Tousen, right? And I was using with Renji, and I was clearing stuff, and it was fine, and I didn't have any problems at all. I was using, I was just perfectly running it, no problem at all, right? No content was difficult. I didn't have Ikaku. I still don't have Ikaku. But as content sort of scales up in difficulty, what I will start to notice in my account is I'm missing the big DPS units, right? I think what you're going to want to start doing and thinking of in this game, and this is just an assumption because, we don't know, I don't know, this could change. Maybe someone who, maybe a whale is out there and is like, this is how my characters are affected by DPSs versus supports. These are how my teams are affected, right? I think what pulling Tousen off the standard banner means for me is that I now have my strike DPS. I'm waiting on my slash DPS. I'm going to pull for Toshiro, Hitsugaya. Maybe that means that I'm going Gin. Maybe Gin is next for me, right? That is, in my head, it makes the most sense. So, which means that I'll be skipping Aizen and then picking up Kenpachi. What that does for me is then, again, I'll have my strike solved. Kenpachi will come for my slash team. I'll have Toshiro Hitsugaya for my spirit team. And then my thrust team, the final element, will be Gin. And that'll square me until future characters come out. And while I'm not saying that you have to sort of follow this mark, this benchmark, you don't need to, chase after my mindset or chase my philosophy or whatever. I do kind of want to give people who are free to play and low spending the insight that your accounts are a little more meaningful than a whale in terms of the decisions you need to make. So I would look at your current team and let's say, you go to Gacha. Let's be honest. I love Gin, so it's like a pretty easy choice for me. But if I had Ikaku, I wouldn't pull for Gin. If before Gin comes out, I'm still using standard tickets and I just happen to pull for Ikaku, I'm not pulling for Gin. So it can change. It is consequence to, it falls under the consequence of what I end up pulling. But when I look at these four characters, I'm like, okay, well, my strike team's done, done quotation marks. My thrust team just wants a DPS and my slash team just wants a DPS. It just makes the most sense to fall into this pattern. And even though it won't be like the most optimal spirit team or something when I use Rukia and Hitsugaya instead of Hitsugaya and Aizen, obviously. And I'm not saying no one should pull for Aizen. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that we can sort of see the puzzle pieces fall into place on an account. And this sort of mindset just helps you save. It helps you pull for characters that you love because you're filling out spots. Once I start doing this, because obviously I'm still missing a bunch of standard tickets, right? Once I start doing this, though, I'm going to start picking those characters up just naturally because I have so much of, the unranked tower I haven't done, right? I've barely been able to do, progress to this point, and I've been progressing pretty solidly to this point. I just need to keep raising my gear and gear score levels and stuff like that, right? But yeah, I thought that was important to get into just to lead off because, of course, getting an SSR means that, big exciting news for an account. And in this case, it was a pretty remarkable one. I am very excited to have gotten Tousen. Tousen is super sick. I will probably be switching my Gacha banner, my select banner over to his. I already did, in fact, because his is insanely strong. This is super strong, so there is that. Let's go over to the secondary, or I mean, if this is what you're interested in, maybe the main point of the video. So here we go. So here we have Giku's account saying, "You could not convince me that the game would be doing this good before launch." It's Bleach Soul Resonance's news account saying, "Bleach Soul Resonance absolutely killed it and made $8.3 million in 10 days. This is not counting the web store profit and all the money spent in the previous betas for bonuses. Revenue-wise, this is an absolutely successful launch for the game. Let's hope they start fixing things." As far as fixes, I mean, I think the games looked really solid, right? I think the games looked really, really solid. Again, this isn't counting web store. This isn't counting, this isn't counting what they spent prior to the launch of the game, obviously. So combined $8.3 million is really big for a launch, especially an IP gacha, right? This person says it. The core of the game is really good. The core of the game is really good. I've been saying it for, you know, days and days of talking about the game. I haven't let up on a video dropping. I think the strongest part of Bleach Soul Resonance is it is fun to press buttons in the game. And I'm gonna make the analogy again that I made yesterday or the day before or something like that with playing an ARG like Path of Exile and just killing monsters. You can make bad patches for a game like Path of Exile, obviously, but the core game, it's still just so fun to blow up monsters. It just is. In Bleach Soul Resonance, the characters are so well made and so well realized that even the least hyped character, the least quote-unquote hyped character, is zipping around and doing crazy shit, right? They're zipping around and doing crazy things and launching these cool attacks and having these cool animations, and it just feels good in your hands to press buttons in the game, right? The loop feels good. It's something that I enjoyed about Zenless Zone Zero, but ultimately I just sort of can't really get into like the super goonery nature of Zenless Zone Zero. No shame to anyone if you like it. That's not the kind of person I am. I ended up liking characters like Von Lycon and the Shark Girl because they just kind of looked cool, but you know, they just didn't put out enough of those like cool looking characters to me that I kept up playing it. But the gameplay feel, getting my hands on it, and we're gonna get into like talking about Legends a bit and talking about Dokkan a bit, because for people who are new here, and which is a lot of you, because you know, channel's been doing super good with Bleach Soul Resonance. I have been posting hundreds and hundreds of Dokkan videos. I played a good amount of Legends, not a ton. And so Dragon Ball and Dokkan in general are something I talk about a lot. And here we can see that the big Legends Fest, the part 1, made 7.3 million, which compared to October was 7.1 million, which is crazy. This is like, you know, this is, and it's again, not including web store, but like, this is like if Bleach Soul Resonance was putting out like the half anniversary or the anniversary or something. Like Bleach Soul Resonance is crushing 10 days in to a launch. Like not even like a big, like, oh, all the players are here and want to spend money on, you know, Vastalord Ichigo versus Ukiera, dual banners, 2 banners at once, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is like a launch with 1 banner. You know, 1 banner, which is Bankai Ichigo for, like, and again, this is no shame to Dragon Ball Legends, because I play this game. I want Dragon Ball as an IP to do as best as it can, because I love Dragon Ball, right? Like, you can see JJK Phantom Parade here barely scraping by. I would hope that it would be doing better, right? But yeah, I think it's just something I wanted to point out. I think that this is more of a celebratory post, just talking about like how well the game has done and why it feels so enjoyable to play, why it feels so addicting to get back into. Bleach Soul Resonance has really impressed in the same way that I think Chaos Zero Nightmare impressed, which is to say that from a strictly gameplay loop perspective, I know people want more stamina, of course, people want more of this and that. It's not that those things aren't problems. It's just that if you were going to make a core game to sell someone, this was the core game to make. I think the developers did a great job just appealing to the power fantasy of being a Bleach character and, you know, crushing Hollow, right? Super great. So, with all that being said, without having to, you know, stick on this point too much longer, with all that being said, like the video, subscribe to the club, we'll go make it, and peace.